Joining us now to discuss BTC price and more is Katherine Dowling. She's a former federal prosecutor who now serves as general counsel and chief compliance officer at Bitwise Asset Management. Hello, Katherine. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, and thanks for having me. Very nice to be here, Christine. Thank you.
So we'd like to know your thoughts on where is Bitcoin's bottom?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. We certainly have stabilized a little bit in the last few days around the 20K mark. What we talk about with investors at heart, Bitwise is a research organization, and we're talking to financial advisors and RAs on the daily. And people are very focused, obviously, on Bitcoin price and other crypto assets. And we're certainly having a San Francisco summer and bear market around the pricing. But we're really trying to focus our conversations with investors on the long term, not looking at the price in months, even days, but really looking at it over the course of years. And Bitcoin has had its series of cyclicality in 4-year trends. We are constantly crunching those numbers and looking at the data, but we're also trying to really focus investors and ourselves really on the fundamentals, the long-term prospects, and the promise of the technology.
Well, as we see the fallout from Terra Luna, which has taken down now Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, Babel Finance, and Voyager, what do you say to those investors? Are they concerned about these crypto companies and what that may, how that may impact the future?
There's absolutely concern because, of course, that's what's right now in the spotlight and center stage, and it makes for scary news and stories. Bitwise was not involved in Terra, thankfully, in Luna, but when we talk to investors about it, we also say that there could be other shoes to drop. So we might not see the end in terms of other big news stories. So be aware that more may be coming along those lines, along with macro factors. But again, we do try to refocus the conversation on the long-term fundamentals. And if you look at the returns of Bitcoin and other crypto assets over years, not months, not days, you really do see that there are the risk-adjusted returns there that can be very helpful to portfolios.
Well, it's interesting you say Bitwise was not involved with Terra Luna because, you know, Voyager wasn't either, but they were highly exposed to Three Arrows Capital, and they were a reputable hedge fund in the space. So I wonder your thoughts on, you know, how interconnected it all is, and is there more cleaning to be done, so to speak, with other firms that may have had exposure to Three Arrows Capital or otherwise?
We definitely could see more exposure because there is, as you put it, an interconnectedness. So we don't yet know the full extent of the interconnectedness. So we could see other shoes to drop potentially. And then you've seen other areas where there was involvement, but there was not as much exposure. So you get the hit, but you don't get the bankruptcy that you're seeing or the Voyager experience or Celsius. So you're going to have those companies that were overexposed. You're going to have companies that were in the middle ground, and you're going to have the companies that didn't have exposure. But I don't think we've seen the end of it yet in terms of the ripple effects, unfortunately. But I don't think that that's going to be the end of it. You have a number of crypto ostriches out there, and I think that is the wrong approach because it's not going away, and the fundamentals are there for the businesses that are operating properly.
So, Katherine, when you put your compliance hat on, you know, what do you see happening with regulation going forward?
Yeah, no, and it's a great question. And I think what I see with regulation going forward has been incredibly positive. It's a slow moving boat, unfortunately, but what I'm seeing are 3 very positive developments. First off, the education has picked up remarkably. I was in DC a couple of weeks ago, and the tempo and the energy around learning and getting more information was tremendous. A number of members of Congress came to one of the conferences I was attending. They were speakers. They were actively involved. So one is that education. The 2 point is the energy point. There's a bigger energy behind learning and evolving our regulation and an effort to not fall behind. I think that's been a really big concern. It's been a focus of recent agenda around the dialogue with regulation, that we are at risk of falling behind. And the third part that I see that's very positive is that we have the Lummis-Gillibrand bill is out there. Somebody and folks rolled up their sleeves, got involved, and put something out there that we can pressure test and work with. We have something down on paper. So we're past just the dialogue, the energy, the education, the resources are going into putting pen to paper, and now we have something to react against. And that dialogue around this new bill is also going to dovetail with the important research that's going to come out of the Biden executive order. So that's a lot of stuff happening in the fall. And I'm seeing positives come out of that will really help with the volatility around crypto prices, because regulation, as you know, and as you correctly pointed out, is a key point. We need those guardrails, we need the transparency, and we need the clarity. And we're moving in that right direction, which is incredibly important.
In some regards, we're seeing regulation by litigation. You know, the SEC has recently rejected a spot Bitcoin ETF from Grayscale as well, which is Grayscale is a sister company of CoinDesk, as well as from Bitwise, a spot Bitcoin ETF by your firm as well. And in Grayscale's case, they are looking to sue the SEC to get some sort of approval potentially. But I wonder if Bitwise would consider that course of action.
It's a great question. We're looking at all different courses of actions. Historically, we have had a very active and a positive dialogue with the SEC about what are the obstacles? What are the questions? And we've put out a number of white papers answering those questions. And we feel that we've provided fulsome answers to the questions that have been raised. So it is frustrating because it feels like this is a great product to answer the very question that the SEC has raised about investor protections. This is a product that has disclosures, it has transparency, it has ease of operation. It works really well with existing financial advisors being able to work with their clients and provide advice to them on a dialogue. Not having this type of product makes it so that you have retail investors.
So, Katherine, would Bitwise consider suing the SEC as well, or do you think that action would be counterproductive?
I don't think it would be counterproductive, and it's not off the table. I know, like, the lore of, suing is there's an angry fight. But this type of litigation is really about answering technical questions. It's less about what people would think of, like, the Hollywood lawsuit and so, winners and losers. It's about getting answers to some of the technical questions. So I would not put it off the table. And I think there's some real there behind the questions that have been raised by Grayscale and that might be answered by litigation. I don't think litigation is ever the most efficient approach. It's unfortunate. It's to have an open dialogue and a communication and come to answers sitting at the same table. As a former litigator, a former federal prosecutor, I've had seats at that table, and I think it's much more productive if you can engage in a dialogue, figure out what the obstacles are, and try to really answer those questions together in a productive manner is the most effective approach. But that isn't always the approach that is going to work.